Good morning, everyone. Wildlife photography has come a long way in a rather short period of time. Cameras have advanced so much so quickly that it puts many longtime photographers on a nearly even playing field with many newer, largely unpracticed photographers. Skills that used to take weeks, months, and even years to master, like maintaining focus on a fast-moving bird in flight, are now made easy for everyone with settings like Animal Eye Detect. In today's video, I wanted to review some skills that will help set you and your photos apart from the countless other wildlife photographers out there. These are skills that you, the photographer, will need to acquire and hone to improve your photography, rather than relying on advances in camera technology to get your dream photos. As we go through this video, I want to hear what skills you feel are vital to learn as a photographer as technology puts us all on this more even playing field. Let us know in the comments below. Let's get into it. And just to clarify, I am not implying that we should be comparing ourselves to other people or to other photographers, simply that we should be constantly improving our own abilities rather than solely relying on those of the cameras that we use. And if you are a competitive person and feel the need to compare, then compare yourself and your photographic abilities with where you were as a photographer a month ago, rather than comparing yourself to somebody else in a completely different situation or scenario. Okay, sermon over. Let's get into it. I'm constantly amazed at how many people rely on things like internet forums, websites, and Facebook groups as their only method of finding wildlife. Please don't misunderstand me. I don't think that there is anything wrong with this method, but you'll notice that as you develop the skills to find wildlife on your own and utilize both of these methods, the number and quality of your wildlife encounters will increase, leading to increased photo opportunities. You'll be able to focus on photographing species of your choosing, and not just species that others have spotted recently. As you develop this skill, you'll be able to enter nearly any habitat and already know the likely places to find animals to photograph. This will also help you save so much time as a photographer. When I first started as a wildlife photographer, I wanted so badly to photograph some bighorn sheep. So I hopped online and read through various websites and forums, and then I drove nearly 5 hours to get to a spot where I could photograph them, because this was the closest place to my home that I could find online. As my abilities to find wildlife on my own grew, I soon began to find these bighorn sheep within 30 minutes of my own home. Obviously, this led to increased photo opportunities because I was able to get out with these sheep on a daily basis if I wanted to. There are many tools that you can use in your search for wildlife and different resources and exercises that you can utilize. I'll put a playlist of videos in the description below that you can watch if this is a topic that you're interested in learning more about. Many newer cameras have features like pre-capture or pre-record, which assist a photographer in capturing a scene that happened just moments before that they would have missed otherwise if they weren't ready for it. These features are game changers amongst wildlife photographers, but will never take the place of the knowledge that each photographer can acquire for themselves about animal behavior. Knowing an animal's behavior gives you a huge advantage as a photographer. Knowing about the behavior of a specific species that you're photographing can tell you quite a few things: what the animal is likely to do and when it's likely to do it. This will help you determine when and where you need to position yourself. It can tell you what types of photos you can anticipate, which will help you determine what settings to use on your camera. Learning about animal behavior is something that I've touched on previous videos, and for good reason. I cannot stress how important this is and how much it'll help you as a photographer in getting your dream shots that you want. If you can predict what an animal is likely to do before it happens, especially if you have multiple animal subjects in front of you, you will know which one to focus on and when to get the shot that you want. On my wildlife photography workshops, I can generally tell photographers which subject to focus on in a group and when to focus on it, and what behavior to expect so that they can get the photos that they want. The resulting images turn out to be fantastic. I don't say this in an attempt to boast or to show off, but simply to show what years of observing and learning can lead to. I'm constantly learning from the amazing wildlife that I get to spend time with. It is such a fun and wonderful process. One of the things that I've had the most difficulty developing as a wildlife photographer is an artistic eye. There are some photographers out there that are just so good at this. An example is Steve Mathis here on YouTube. If you've seen his videos, he has such a good eye for those abstract or black and white photos, something that I'm just awful at. I've been out with so many photographers that are just fantastic with utilizing leading lines in their wildlife photography. Again, another thing that I'm just not great at this point. Framing your subject is a great way to add an artistic flair to your pictures, and personally, I love looking for fun features in the landscape and figuring out ways to try to incorporate those into my images, or by simply adding more landscape than animal in some of my photos. As I mentioned, this is something I've had a really difficult time developing as a photographer, but I do recognize the importance of it in helping your images stand out or become more eye-catching, set themselves apart from the millions of other photos that are out there. I'd love to hear from you. What are some methods or things that you look for to help your images become more eye-catching to the viewer? Let us know in the comments below. All of the fanciest camera features or camera gear in the world will never help you photograph that perfect scenario if you're not even there in the first place. I found that this next point is absolutely vital in wildlife photography. It carries over to just about every aspect of life, and it's something that seems to be increasingly rare these days. That is patience and repetition. On one of my recent bear photography workshops, we were out on the tundra with a mother bear and her cubs. We sat there as she and her cubs napped for nearly 2 hours, after which they woke up, she nursed them, and the cubs began to play. We got some incredible photos. Afterwards, one of the photographers in the group told me that if there was one thing that he was learning from the experiences that we had during the duration of the workshop, is that he needed to be more patient in his wildlife photography. He said that if it were just him, he would have left to find something else instead of staying with the sleeping bears. I found in my own photography and wildlife encounters that more often than not, it pays to exercise patience in a scenario and wait for that burst of action, rather than to rush off when things seem slow to try and find something else to photograph. This should be a calculated decision that you make, and it becomes a lot easier if you understand animal behavior like we talked about in that previous point. As you practice that patience day after day, month after month, and year after year, you'll begin to capture behavior that few people see or photograph, leading to more unique images that truly stand out. Come join me in Brazil's vast Pantanal as we search for regal jaguars and the other plentiful wildlife that inhabit the area. Our full days on the boat provide countless opportunities for photography, with enough room for you and all your essential camera gear. Our guides are the best of the best, and they know just where to go to get us the best shots possible. Return at the end of each day to a wonderful meal at our clean and comfortable lodge and all of the accommodations. Electricity, Wi-Fi, hot showers, and plentiful wildlife around the lodge itself. I have multiple trip options available, so hit the link in the description below, choose which option works best for you, and join me in this breathtaking wilderness. Let's get back to it. While many cameras have some very impressive dynamic ranges, and many programs like Lightroom or Photoshop make it very easy to balance out some stark contrasts in an image, this should never take the place of you, the photographer, knowing how to work with whatever light you have available. While it's hard to beat perfect light and its resulting sharp images and intense colors, many of my favorite pictures that I've taken have been in less than ideal light conditions. If you know how to properly create a silhouette in an image, you'll already be leaps and bounds ahead of where I was for what seemed like ages when I was starting into photography. Utilizing highlights can turn a poor light situation into a moody and outstanding photo opportunity. And did you know that photographing pinpoints of light at f/16 will turn those pinpoints into little starbursts without a special filter? Using backlight can illuminate aspects of a scene that would be nearly invisible otherwise, turning your images into so much more. And by knowing how a specific light condition will affect your subject's surrounding landscape, you can position yourself appropriately and capture colors that you don't often see in nature. Again, today's cameras are so impressive with their ability to balance out a harsh light situation that you may have in front of you. But trust me, you will go so much farther as a photographer if you learn to use those situations to your advantage and turn your photos into something much more engaging. One thing that cameras can't do for you is compose your image and tell you where to position yourself as the photographer. This, like many of the other points in today's video, is one that can easily set you aside as a wildlife photographer and help your images stand out in a world flooded with millions of pictures. There are so many things to consider when composing your image or positioning yourself in relation to where your subject is. But one thing that I always try to consider first, whenever possible, is what I want my background to be. A well thought out background can turn your image from average to extraordinary. This doesn't just mean making sure there's a mountain behind your subject, as much as I love to do that myself. This could mean a very clean and simple background that adds a splash of color and helps your subject stand out. It could be a more complex background with another subject that helps to tell a story. Or it definitely could be that mountain in the background that just turns your image from this to this. Try getting into the habit of always looking around you for details that you can add into an image's background, and be aware of how those details will change as the weather and light conditions change. Another compositional factor that I like to consider is whether or not to photograph your subject on eye level. We hear this all the time as wildlife photographers: always photograph your subject on eye level. Now, I do agree that this is a great general rule to adhere to. But if you want to continue to improve as a wildlife photographer and set your photos apart, you need to learn when to break this rule. This is a point that deserves its own video. Luckily, I have one that you can check out right here. Thank you so much for following along this week. I hope this video was helpful to you. I appreciate your constant support here on YouTube, as well as all of those who join me out in the field on a wildlife workshop. Thanks for following along. We'll see you next time.